Hi guys, it's Kelly Ledavola here and I'm back with another video for Waffleflower. Today I am going to be using the Bouquet Builder number 5, and then also for my sentiments I'm going to be using Sisterhood. And I should mention that the Bouquet Builder number 5 is actually the bundle set because I will also be using the die. So I did this kind of fun thing. I went on Instagram and shared a couple of color combinations, and then I let my Instagram followers vote on what they wanted. Option number 2 is the one that won, which is more fall colors, which is not really my forte. So I had to do some swatching to try to get some colors that matched, and I wanted to do something since most people picked it. They picked it because they were like, it's the least, the one you're least likely to use. It's like the most outside of your comfort zone. Because it was the most outside of my comfort zone, I decided I was going to do something a little bit different. And instead of doing a white background, which I love, I decided I was going to use the dark teal in that color combo to make my background. Except I didn't have a teal that was quite dark enough. So I'm going to make my own. I covered the entire background of this. This is Nina 80 Pound Solar White with chipped sapphire. And then I'm going over top of that with pine needles. This is original distress ink. Oxides don't mix as well because of their pigment properties. They're meant to sit on top of each other. So you can do other different cool techniques with those. The distress inks I find do blend better to make new colors. So that's what I did here. I just covered the entire thing. And then I kind of got a little experimental. So I wanted to do some spatters around the flower bouquet. And so I tried it with black soot. And it wasn't, because the background's so dark, you could barely see them. So then I was like, well, let me see if I can try to mix in some glitter. So this is Sparkle Dust from Nuvo, to see if that would make it any darker. And it did, but it didn't stay. Because it's just glitter, it's just like crushed up mica powder. You can see it better, but once it was dry, the glitter just kind of wiped off. So I had some glitter in the background, which was awesome, but not like those bold black dots. And I wanted something to break up that background. So I've decided to set that aside to dry because I don't know yet that it won't work, that it's not going to work. And then I moved on to my stamping. So I knew that I didn't want the entire Bouquet Builder stamp set to be on my card. I really just wanted it to be in the top right hand corner. So that's how I positioned my stamp in my Misty. I'm stamping with Copic Safe ink because I am going to be doing some Copic coloring. It totally changed. That's why I think it was so fun to do this, because it completely changed my game plan. So when I originally sat down with this stamp set, I was going to do no line coloring. And then I was like, well, I'll do no line watercoloring because I haven't done that in a really long time. So that was originally my game plan. And then once I put the color combination out there, and I ended up with the color combo that I wouldn't necessarily have picked for myself, it totally changed my approach to the card, which is really kind of awesome because I've been struggling a little bit with like my creative mojo. So doing things like this, where you let other people have a say in your color scheme or your layout or whatever, can really kind of like push you outside of your normal boundaries, and that can kind of kickstart your creativity, which is pretty much what happened to me here. So I picked some reds that are more like a tomato red because the color scheme had more like a burnt orange. So here for adding the shading, this is one of those stamp sets that makes it super easy to add your shading because your artist has pretty much already done that for you. So you can see here where the shading lines are on the flower. And I like to start with my lightest color because I'm very heavy-handed with my dark color. And then also if I make a mistake, it's super easy to cover up because it's the lightest color. So here I'm just going through and adding that shading to the areas where the artist has already put it in. And then I'm just going to move out, so from my lightest out to my midtones to my darkest. I thought I was only going to do a 3-color blend, which is atypical for me. I usually like 4 colors, but I thought that it would be okay. I thought that I would be okay with the dimension. Turns out I wasn't. Turns out I needed the 4th color. I guess you just, you find something that you like and you stick with it. As far as color blending goes, you're going to notice that my two darkest colors are actually in the E family. So I used an E07 and then an E09. They are considered browns or earth tones, but because they have so much red in them, they work really well to be a shadow color for the burnt orange kind of look that I'm going for here. And sometimes I think the camera is a little bit deceiving, because when it's all said and done, I felt like on camera it looked like the colors weren't as blended as well as they were in real life. So if you're watching on YouTube, please make sure you head over to the blog to check out the still photos, because I think that shows the blending much better than it does with the camera light, because these have to be so crazy well lit for you guys to see what I'm doing, that I think sometimes it makes the coloring look a little bit harsh. So again, just working back out to my lightest color. And for my lightest color, I'm going to kind of come in from the edge so it doesn't pick up too much of that dark. And here we haven't, I don't believe we brought in I don't know if we did. I'm going to go back in with the E09 and just really hit the parts that I want to make sure are the darkest. So that there is a lot of dimension there. So the parts where the petals that are, further in the back, or where you have a bunch of petals grouped together, I'm going to just kind of darken and deepen those little crevices up. I went ahead and colored the other flower that is the exact same. And then for the two smaller ones, I'm going to bring in the lighter orange color. This one I kind of struggled with coming up with a color combination for, because of just what I own. So the one color I own that would have been perfect was a YR21, but it's kind of on its last leg and I don't have a refill. So good to know that I need to order one, because I didn't realize that I did. But so I ended up going with a little bit of a brighter orangish red, and I really do like that, and I like the way that it looks on the card at the end of the day. So for the shadows for this one, I'm using my lighter colors from the other flower, the R05 and the R08. And again, I'm just following the shading that's already been put down for me by the artist. Makes it super simple to just color these up and, get the shading correct without a whole lot of thought here. So then I'm going to flip that over. I'm going to go ahead and do the other flower. This one I decided to leave in because there's so many petals that kind of like fold over each other. I wanted you to see where I put the shading. So that there's two petals. I know it looks like one, but there's two petals in the background, and they're both kind of curving over themselves. That's definitely going to be the darkest portion of this flower because no light would be getting in there. The other part that's going to be super dark is the petal that's right up front, that how it kind of like cups over and then down into itself. It's going to be the darkest there. But that's okay, because in real life, when you're looking at, a flowering plant or a tree or whatever, they don't all look the same because they all grow a little bit different and the petals are all a little bit different. And so as long as you're using the same colors, you may have some flowers in a bouquet that are a little bit darker or a little bit lighter, but as long as you're using the same colors, it's okay if they aren't 100% matchy-matchy. That's not how God makes things anyway. He makes them to be unique, right? So just going through back out to the lightest color again. But like I said, I totally think that it was such a fun way to kind of kickstart my mojo, that I was feeling a little less than creative and a little bit kind of lost with how to do things. The biggest struggle for me, let's talk about the berries. So in this bouquet, there's like a little branch of berries. Now, normally I probably would have colored them a different color, like other than what I had already used. But because I was trying to stay true to that color combination, I opted to just use the R05. I did a little dot all on one side. Make sure you stay consistent. Your dark shadow should be all on one side. And then because there isn't a lot of real estate, I just went back in with one of the yellows and filled in the whole circle, and they blended fine. In smaller areas, it's much easier to blend colors. This is the part I struggled with the most because I had like these kind of bold, bright colors, but the color combo was like this burnt orange, this brightish yellow orange, a kind of steely teal, like a gray, almost like a grayish teal, and then the dark teal and black. So this is kind of like that steely color, and I didn't really have a lot of colors that matched, y'all, because I don't have all the Copic markers. I'm working on it, but I don't have them all, and so I buy the colors that I am naturally I naturally would gravitate towards, and more muted colors aren't it for me. So I kept feeling like these leaves didn't have enough dimension. I did go back with the darkest color and just add a little bit to make it darker, but I kept feeling like they weren't dark enough. There wasn't enough dimension. There's two different kinds of leaves in this particular bouquet. So for the other ones, I'm using the same family, that BG70 family, but I'm just using the darker colors to fill in these other set of leaves, just so there's a little bit of variation. But anywho, so I just kept feeling like there wasn't enough dimension on the leaves, that I needed to change it, but I was scared that if I added too much dark, it wasn't going to be true to the color combination. And I was trying my very best to stay true to that, because I know it's something that I wouldn't have picked. So once this is all done, I knew I wanted to cut it out with the matching dye, but I also didn't want A, all of that white, because the white wasn't in the color combination, and B, I thought it would be distracting from the bouquet. So here's what I'm going to do. I picked because again, I didn't have a color that matched my background perfectly, but that's okay. We make do with what we got. I'm going to outline everything with this B99, which is a dark navy. And this part was a little bit time consuming for me, but when I saw the end result, it was totally worth it. So I'm going to go with the B99 first, and I'm just going to outline everything. Then I'm going to go back over it with a G29 to make that teal color. In Copic coloring, this type of coloring is called glazing, where you change one color by adding another on top of it. And so the blue isn't gone. Copics are transparent, so they mix together. The blue is not gone, it's just now it's more of a teal. I did outline this because I like a bold black outline. If you have a difficult time seeing, I would maybe recommend doing that before you do the outline in the background with the Copic markers, but I didn't have any trouble. Added a couple of white dots in the center of my flowers, and then this is the piece cut out. And it blends in pretty seamlessly. I was actually really happy with the way that it looked. Since I couldn't get my black spatters to do what I wanted, and this card was giving me a very fall feel, I mean, this is autumn, 110%, right? I decided that the perfect complement to that for the spatters would be gold. So I'm using the gold Perfect Pearls here, and just a number 2 round brush to do some spatters in the background to kind of break that up. I'm going to put on an immense amount of foam tape, just so much foam tape on the background of this so that I can pop it up. I love the way the Waffleflower dies cut, because you can see there's like, it cuts out all the little teeny tiny pieces in between the bouquet. But because I wanted to pop it up, that meant that I had to work around those little teeny tiny pieces, which really was worth it, because at the end of it, it looks, it's such an intricate die, and you can see the gold spatters and see the background through it, which I really, really love. So I just got this lined up with the top and then the right edge there, so that everything was popped up but still blends in, like there's no colors that are distracting away from this bouquet, which now is super bright and pops off the page. Same thing with those leaves I was so concerned about. And then for the sentiment, I have this Altenew. This is I think it's called Enchanted Gold. It's the more yellow gold one, and I'm stamping it on black cardstock. And I thought that would be sufficient enough, because it really is, because it's a pigment ink. It's really is a very good gold ink, but it just wasn't bright enough for me. So I'm going to heat emboss it with gold. Thankfully, because it's a pigment ink, the stuff stays wet for days, and that's a drastic exaggeration, not days, but a long time. Longer than I like, because I have no patience. So here, I'm going to just use the Ranger Gold, and then heat that up until it's nice and smooth. I didn't have to do anything special to it, because like I said, the ink that I stamped in was already pigment ink, which is great for embossing. So this gives it a little bit more shine. And then I'm going to, once this is all done, I'm going to trim it down into a label. It partially overlapped my flower bouquet, so I have foam tape on one side, and then I'm using Tombow Mono glue. Tombow Mono multi-glue. Why can't I speak? Why are words hard? On the other side. So then I just went ahead and popped that up, and then that's it. That's the whole thing. So thank you guys so much for joining me. I hope you found something to inspire you here to maybe give, push yourself outside of your boundaries. Thanks for joining me, and I will catch you on the next video. Bye.